War movies and war films have been a staple of cinema since its inception, and in this video I will give you my recommendations of the top 50 best war movies of all time. But before we begin, don't forget, if you love anything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel History Spark. At number 50, it is The Bridge on the River Kwai, the 1957 epic war film which gives viewers an engaging and in-depth look at the complicated dynamics between captors and prisoners during World War II. Bridge on the River Kwai tells the story of Colonel Nicholson and his eventual obsession with building a strategic railway bridge for his Japanese captors in Burma. This movie benefits from stellar acting, stunning cinematography, and it presents a multifaceted look at pride, duty, and madness from prisoners of war. However, the movie is quite lengthy at 161 minutes, and it does really drag in the middle section or the second act of the film. But if you're looking for a classic introduction to a prisoner of war movie, then The Bridge on the River Kwai is the perfect recommendation for you. At number 49 is The King's Choice, a war film based around Norway's defiant stand against Nazi Germany in 1940. This film takes place in wartime Norway, with King Haakon VII facing an impossible ultimatum from the invading German forces demanding his cooperation and Norway's immediate surrender. This leads to the king making a fateful decision that will determine his nation's future, and it sets the central plot and focus of the film. The King's Choice has some decent acting, a very unique and interesting plot, although it can be a bit slow and dialogue heavy at times. But the final confrontation scenes are really intense to watch and make the movie definitely worth a one-time watch. At number 48, it is Napoleon, a biographical war film that chronicles the rise and fall of French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, with Joaquin Phoenix in the title role and Vanessa Kirkby portraying his wife Josephine. The film attempts to balance Napoleon's legendary military campaigns with his tumultuous romantic relationship with Josephine, which results in the film doing a terrible job of portraying both elements of Napoleon's life, as the storyline, pacing, and the acting of Joaquin Phoenix in this film are all pretty lackluster. But Napoleon does have exceptionally stunning cinematography, impressive battle sequences, and lavish period costumes, which could make this an engaging experience for anyone wanting a beautiful yet flawed depiction of Napoleon's life. At number 47, it is Warfare, a modern war film based around a real Navy SEAL mission gone wrong during the Iraq War in 2006, with communications officer Ray Mendoza and his SEAL platoon getting involved in a desperate fight for survival as the Navy SEALs come under heavy fire and a brutal fight for survival ensues. This movie is fast-paced and action-heavy and is perhaps the best movie I've ever seen about the Iraq War so far. At number 46, it is Pearl Harbor, a romantic war drama directed by Michael Bay that blends a love triangle with a large-scale recreation of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and the subsequent Doolittle raid. This film follows childhood friends and pilots Rafe and Danny, whose bond is strained when Rafe's relationship with Nurse Evelyn collides with the outbreak of the war. Pearl Harbor has impressive visual effects, amazing large-scale action sequences, and a very fascinating, easy-to-follow plot. However, though the romantic elements of the film are a bit melodramatic and may not appeal to everyone, but if you're looking for a fairly long war movie with some great cinematography and epic moments, then Pearl Harbor is my recommendation for you. At number 45, it is Tears of the Sun, an action war drama that follows a Navy SEAL team led by Lieutenant Waters, who are sent to extract an American doctor from a Nigerian civil war engulfed by ethnic cleansing. This movie has amazing acting by Bruce Willis and Monica Bellucci, impressive hand-to-hand combat sequences, and a heart-wrenching and emotional plot. However, the third act of the film is a bit weak compared to the rest of the movie, but overall, if you want a unique action-filled war drama, then Tears of the Sun is the movie for you. At number 43, it is the epic historical war film Waterloo, which depicts Napoleon Bonaparte's final battle in June 1815 and all the tumultuous events leading up to the Battle of Waterloo and the imprisonment that would follow. Waterloo is one of the most ambitious war movies ever made, utilizing 17,000 Soviet troops as extras to create massive authentic battle sequences without the usage of any CGI or other computer animated effects. This results in the film having a really authentic feel, which is further bolstered by the acting of the entire cast. But if you want to watch one of the best depictions ever created on the Napoleonic Wars, then Waterloo is my recommendation for you. At number 42, it is Siege of Jadotville, which is a war film based around the events that led up to and occurred during the Siege of Jadotville, where a unit of Irish soldiers were besieged by Cantonese forces during the United Nations operations in the Congo during 1961. This is a tense and brutal film in which we see firsthand the struggles, fears, and tensions that arise in the Irish camp due to the ongoing siege. The movie also does a great job of keeping the viewer engaged throughout the entire film with a mix of great action scenes, dialogue, and acting. So if you're looking to find out more about a very little known about battle, then Siege of Jadotville is my recommendation for you. At number 41, it is The Forgotten Battle, a World War II film which depicts the Battle of the Scheldt in 1944 through the viewpoint of three characters: a British pilot, a Dutch Axis soldier, and a resistance fighter. The Forgotten Battle benefits from strong acting by the entire cast, an engaging and harrowing plot with non-stop plot twists and turns, and some brutal action scenes and battles as well. The few minor critiques I have with this film though is the huge number of characters that get introduced, making it hard to keep up with all the names and people in the film, as well as the overall weak script, which does mean that a lot of the emotional scenes get lost in translation when converting dialogue to subtitles. But if you have a Netflix subscription, then The Forgotten Battle will be a great World War II film that you should add to your watch list as soon as possible. At number 40, it is War Horse, a historical film based around a young man's bond with his horse during the First World War, with viewers being taken to rural England and wartime Europe, with Albert Narracotte's beloved horse Joey being sold to the British cavalry and thrust into the brutal realities of World War I. War Horse has some excellent acting with talented actors across the board such as Tom Hiddleston, Emily Watson, and Benedict Cumberbatch, all giving standout performances in the movie. The story unfolds in an episodic way, which is cool, but it is also a bit long at 146 minutes and emotionally inconsistent at parts. Overall though, War Horse is a film that I could easily recommend to any viewer of this channel. At number 39, it is Empire of the Sun, an epic war drama directed by Steven Spielberg, which was based on J.G. Ballard's semi-autobiographical novel following a young British boy named Jamie Jim Graham, played by a 13-year-old Christian Bale in his film debut. And early on in the film, he is separated from his wealthy parents during Japan's invasion of Shanghai, and he must survive in a Japanese internment camp. The film excels in its stunning visual storytelling, with Spielberg recreating 1940 Shanghai with epic realism and breathtaking cinematography. And Bale also delivers an extraordinary performance, showing Jim's transformation throughout the film brilliantly. The ending of this film though felt a bit lackluster to me, but overall, if you're looking for a visually stunning war film with a captivating lead performance, then Empire of the Sun is my recommendation for you. At number 38, it is Operation Mincemeat, a British spy drama that recounts the true story of World War II's most audacious deception operation, where British intelligence officers devised a plan to fool Hitler by planting fake invasion documents on a corpse disguised as a Royal Marine officer. The film benefits from stellar performances by its charismatic primary and secondary cast and John Madden's amazing direction, creating genuine tension and dry humor throughout the film. However though, the film suffers from an unnecessary romantic subplot that feels like a needless entry to a film that already has a fascinating enough story to tell. So if you're looking for a well-crafted and engaging World War II drama that is entertaining from beginning to end, then Operation Mincemeat is the perfect movie for you. At number 37, it is Greyhound, a World War II naval drama which tells the amazing story of Commander Ernest Krause, a first-time captain tasked with escorting 37 Allied ships across the Atlantic, while simultaneously being hunted by German U-boat wolf packs and other warships. This film stars Tom Hanks, who is solid and amazing as usual, and the movie also has a very interesting and well-paced plot with some great battle sequences and cinematography. So if you want to watch one of the best naval war dramas ever created, then Greyhound is the film for you. At number 36, it is Flags of Our Fathers. a war drama directed by Clint Eastwood that tells the story of the iconic Iwo Jima flag-raising photograph and the 3 surviving servicemen sent on a war bond tour to capitalize on this image. The film employs a unique non-linear structure interweaving awe-inspiring battle sequences alongside scenes of the soldiers struggling in the USA, revealing how this famous moment was actually the second flag raising and exploring media manipulation for propaganda purposes surrounding this image. There are some slight issues with pacing and plot development, but overall, Flags of Our Fathers is a cynical examination of heroism and the power of media propaganda, making it one of the most unique war movies I have ever seen. And at number 35, it only makes sense to have the war movie Letters from Iwo Jima, which tells the story of the Battle of Iwo Jima between the United States and Japanese during World War II, but this film is unique as it tells the battle from the perspective of the Japanese soldiers who participated in this battle. This Clint Eastwood produced film is the companion movie to the Flags of Our Fathers, which shows the Battle of Iwo Jima from the perspective of the American soldiers, and both films are great, but Letters from Iwo Jima is my preferred movie of the two. At number 34, it is Enemy at the Gates, a war drama which depicts a deadly sniper duel during the Battle of Stalingrad in 1942, where Soviet marksman Vasily Zaitsev becomes a propaganda hero and is hunted by elite German sniper Major Koenig. Enemy at the Gates excels in creating tense cat-and-mouse sequences between the two snipers as they battle in the ruins of a bombed-out Stalingrad. My main criticism of this film though is the needless romantic side plot, which detracts from the central sniper duel, which is the part of the movie audiences will be most interested in watching anyways. So if you're looking for an excellent sniper movie set in the backdrop of World War II, then Enemy at the Gates is my recommendation for you. At number 33, it is Defiance, a World War II movie which sees 4 Jewish brothers, the Bielskis, escape persecution by the Nazis by fleeing into the Nalabalki forest. Eventually they meet up with other refugees and Jewish escapees in the forest and become leaders of the small rebel force, and they do their best to survive in some of the most harrowing and challenging situations. This film stars Daniel Craig, Lee Schreiber and Jamie Bell in lead roles for this movie, and they all do a spectacular job of bringing their characters to life. There's actually very little to critique about Defiance, as the acting, storyline and cinematography are all first class. So if you want to watch a very unique World War II film, then Defiance is definitely that movie for you. At number 32, it is Das Boot, a 1981 German war film directed by Wolfgang Petersen, and it follows the crew of U-96, a German U-boat, on a terrifying North Atlantic patrol in 1941. The film is renowned for bringing the authenticity of sailor life and the exhaustion and disillusionment that these men faced about Nazi ideology to life perfectly. Jürgen Prochnow gives an iconic performance as the weary, stoic captain guiding his crew through depth charge attacks and near fatal dives. So if you're okay with the movie that struggles a bit with pacing but shows war in a very realistic manner, then Das Boot is my recommendation for you. At number 31, it is Son of Saul, a Hungarian Holocaust drama that follows Saul Auslander, a Jewish Hungarian member of the Sonderkommando at Auschwitz-Birkenau. These members are forced to assist Nazis in the gas chambers and crematoriums, and when Saul discovers the body of a boy he believes to be his son, he abandons self-preservation to find a rabbi and give the child a proper Jewish burial. Son of Saul is shot in shallow focus with a handheld camera that stays tightly on Saul's face throughout the entire movie, keeping the horrific atrocities deliberately blurred in the background, while the haunting sounds remain visceral and overwhelming, which makes it one of the most different and unique experiences I've ever witnessed in a historical film. At number 30, it is The Dirty Dozen, a 1967 World War II action film about a group of condemned US Army prisoners offered commuted sentences if they survive a suicidal commando mission behind enemy lines in France. Major John Reisman is tasked with training this unruly band of murderers and misfits into a functioning unit to infiltrate a chateau full of German officers on the eve of D-Day. The Dirty Dozen is a brutal, action-heavy war film that has some surprisingly dark but funny moments, and if you want a fun but unrealistic war drama, then The Dirty Dozen is the perfect movie for you. At number 29, it is We Were Soldiers, a 2002 Vietnam War film, which depicts the 1965 Battle of Ia Drang Valley, in which Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore leads 400 American soldiers into combat against over 2,000 North Vietnamese army troops in a brutal and devastating battle. We Were Soldiers is unique because it actually fleshes out the North Vietnamese soldiers and doesn't just have them as cannon fodder or just nameless baddies. And Mel Gibson leads the cast here, and he is amazing as always, so if you want to revisit the brutality of the Vietnam War like you have never seen before, then be sure to check out We Were Soldiers. And number 28, it is The Thin Red Line, a World War II epic that follows a group of soldiers known as the C Company during the Battle of Guadalcanal, focusing on the spiritual journey of Private Witt and the clash between humane Captain Steros and hardline soldier Colonel Tal during this chaotic battle. The Thin Red Line stands out as a philosophical, visually stunning war film, using lyrical voiceover and gorgeous images of nature to contrast the beauty of the Pacific with the horror of combat. Some people may find this film to be a bit slow-paced, but I enjoyed the storyline overall, and I felt that the film's greater focus on the impact of war rather than action-heavy sequences really worked well here. So if you want a philosophical and different perspective of World War II, then be sure to check out The Thin Red Line. At number 27, it is the epic war film A Bridge Too Far, which chronicles the ill-fated Operation Market Garden, which occurred on the 14th of September in 1944, where Allied forces attempted to drop 35,000 paratroopers behind enemy lines in the Netherlands to capture key bridges leading to Germany, but the mission goes horribly wrong. And the acting is easily the best aspect of this film, with an all-star cast including Sean Connery, Anthony Hopkins, Michael Caine, Robert Redford, Gene Hackman, Dirk Bogarde and Ryan O'Neal, all delivering amazing performances. However, A Bridge Too Far is nearly 3 hours long, which some viewers will find difficult to watch due to the limited attention spans of today's viewers. But this epic movie is easily one of the best war films ever created, and you should watch it as soon as you get the chance. At number 26 is the classic film Casablanca, which is set in the backdrop of World War II, and this film tells the extraordinary story of Rick Blaine, a nightclub owner in Casablanca, and the tough challenge he faces in helping one of his former love interests, Ilsa, escape Nazi persecution. This classic 1940s film is perhaps one of the most popular and famous historical films ever created, and the strong acting, dialogue and the plot of the film hold up very well even to this day. At number 25, it is Valkyrie, which is based around the 20 July 1944 plot, which was a failed assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler by German officers who wanted to wrestle political power away from the Nazi Party and make peace with the Western Allies. This film stars Tom Cruise and Kenneth Branagh in principal roles, which means the acting in this film is top class, and with an engaging and gripping plot, this film will keep viewers enthralled from beginning to end. At number 23, it is The Imitation Game, a historical drama that focuses on the extraordinary efforts made by Alan Turing and his team to break the codes of Nazi messages at the height of Germany's power during World War II. And this is the first depiction I have seen that delves so deeply into both the technical and personal struggles involved with code breaking during World War II, and this unique perspective works very well and makes for a fantastic watch. Benedict Cumberbatch delivers a standout performance as Turing, and the supporting cast with Keira Knightley and Charles Dance give magnificent performances as well. Some people may not be a fan of the flashback method of depicting a plot, but I personally had no problems with it, and if anyone is looking for a compelling watch that offers both historical and technical insight, then The Imitation Game is the perfect movie for you. At number 22, it is The Twelfth Man, a Norwegian historical drama focusing on the life of Jean Balsrud, a British trained commando for the Norwegian resistance who is trying to escape from the Nazis after being betrayed by a local German sympathizer. This film has an amazing and fast-paced plot which depicts the physical hardships and tribulations he has to endure to avoid being captured by Nazis, and it really highlights to the viewer just how risky and difficult it was for resistance fighters to find trustworthy locals during this time of German terrorization. The Twelfth Man has amazing acting, a great plot, and a great sense of realism throughout the entire film, providing some of the best immersion I have ever seen in a war movie ever. At number 20, it is Oppenheimer, the thrilling biographical film which tells the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer and his involvement in the Manhattan Project, the team that would eventually develop the atom bomb. Cillian Murphy does a spectacular job of portraying J. Robert Oppenheimer, giving one of the best performances I've ever seen, and Robert Downey Jr. is also great as Louis Strauss. And the story of Robert Oppenheimer is fascinating and very engaging to watch, and the film perfectly depicts all the complexity and challenges of making nuclear weapons for mass destruction. My main criticism with this film though is its length, as Oppenheimer is just far too long and the third act of the movie really does drag on, making it hard to stay focused as the film finally reaches its conclusion. But this is a minor critique in the grand scheme of things, and there's a reason that Oppenheimer grossed nearly $1 billion at the box office. So if you haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, I highly recommend you do so as soon as possible. At number 18, it is Fury, a war film focusing on a fictional US tank squad near the end of World War II in Europe, and how difficult and risky it was being part of a tank crew due to the high casualty rates suffered by armored tank units. Fury benefits from a great plot, great acting, and some amazing battle scenes to boot as well. But this film regularly gets hated on for the huge number of historical inaccuracies and some obvious plot holes as well. But if you want a brutal, unforgiving, and action-filled war film, then Fury is the perfect recommendation for you. At number 17, it is Come and See, a 1985 Soviet anti-war film which is based on the 1978 book I Am from the Fiery Village. The film's primary plot is based on the Nazi Germany occupation of Belarus, and the events that were witnessed by Flora, a young Belarusian teenager who goes against her family's wishes and joins the Belarusian resistance movement against the Nazis. So if you're looking for a movie that has an engaging plot, a broad range of themes, and excellent acting, then Come and See is the perfect film for you. At number 16, it is The Full Metal Jacket, another Vietnam War film, this time being directed by the legendary Stanley Kubrick, and this movie is unique because it is split into two distinctive halves, with one part focusing on the brutal boot camp training at Paris Island and later combat in Vietnam, and the second half following a soldier named Joker through surreal urban warfare. And both parts of the film are great, but I do feel that the first part was a bit better overall. So if you want to watch a really different and engaging Vietnam War movie, then Full Metal Jacket is the movie I would recommend. At number 15, it is Black Hawk Down, a war film directed by the legendary Ridley Scott, which depicts the disastrous October 1993 US military raid in Mogadishu, Somalia, where a quick mission to capture a warlord's advisor turns into a desperate 15-hour urban battle after two Black Hawk helicopters were shot down. This is easily one of the best movies Ridley Scott has ever directed, creating some intense and visceral combat scenes, amazing cinematography, and a musical score that heightens every scene perfectly. However though, very little explanation is given to the political situation in Somalia at the time, and the historical backdrop could have been better explored. So yes, this is definitely one of the more modern war films on this list, but for anyone wanting an epic war film produced by one of the best directors in Hollywood, then Black Hawk Down is the perfect movie for you. At number 14, it is Dunkirk, a war film which depicts the Dunkirk evacuation of World War II, in which 400,000 stranded English and French troops were rescued from the harbors of Dunkirk by a range of small ships. This film is unique as it gives the perspective of events leading up to this evacuation from the land, sea, and air, which really highlights to viewers exactly just how dangerous and challenging this rescue mission was. Dunkirk has some fantastic acting by the entire cast, as there's very little dialogue in this movie, especially during the land scenes, meaning that the actors have to communicate primarily with their facial expressions and body languages to communicate with the audiences and depict their emotions. But the plot here is pretty lacking, as there is no explanation of events that have forced these troops to be stuck in Dunkirk, and the story constantly jumps from air to sea to land, making the story quickly become quite muddled and unclear. However though, Dunkirk is a must-watch film for any fan who wants a better understanding of the Dunkirk evacuation, even if Christopher Nolan does his best to confuse you the entire time. At number 13, it is Platoon, a Vietnam War film, written and directed by Oliver Stone, with the film being based on his own combat experience. Platoon depicts the story of a young recruit named Chris Taylor, portrayed by Charlie Sheen, being caught between two sergeants, the idealistic Elias and the ruthless Barnes, and the internal turmoil he faces during this turbulent time period. Platoon has a brutal and realistic depiction of ground level combat, and it does a great job of focusing on the moral conflict and trauma of war. This film won 4 Oscars including Best Picture, and Platoon is widely regarded as one of the most definitive Vietnam War films ever created, and you owe it to yourself to find out why that is. And number 12, it is Inglourious Basterds, an alternate history movie which focuses on 2 separate plots to assassinate different Nazi leaders. One planned by Shosanna Dreyfus, a young French Jewish cinema proprietor, and the other by a team of Jewish American soldiers led by First Lieutenant Aldo Raine. The primary actors of this film, Brad Pitt and Christopher Waltz, do a great job in their roles and are the primary glue which carry this film from beginning to end. At number 11, it is Glory, a 1989 Civil War drama that tells the true story of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, one of the first African American regiments in the Union Army led by White Colonel Robert Gould Shaw. And this film follows Shaw and his men, including the defiant former slave Trip, played by Denzel Washington, who actually won an Oscar for his performance, as they battle racism from both armies while also proving their worth in combat. Glory benefits from spectacular acting by the entire cast, stunning battle sequences with the assault on Fort Wagner being truly epic, and James Horner's stirring score adding an additional layer of emotional depth throughout the entire film. Glory is widely regarded as one of the best Civil War films ever made, and that is definitely a statement I can agree with. At number 10, it is All Quiet on the Western Front, a Netflix original World War I movie which follows the story of Paul Boehmer and his friends who naively join the German army as they have a romanticized version of war in their heads. But as the movie progresses, these young men lose their innocence as they experience the horrors and trauma of war and the physical and mental impact it has on them. This movie has amazing acting, a great story, and a fantastic sense of realism, and it does a great job of depicting the Germans as more than just the big baddies or an evil force. It was a group of individual soldiers who didn't know what they were getting themselves into and had no choice but to follow their general's orders. So if you love war movies, then All Quiet on the Western Front on Netflix is my recommendation for you. And the 9th spot on this list goes to Downfall, which explores the final days of Adolf Hitler's life stuck in his Berlin bunker, and the film is told through the viewpoint of Gertrude Trudy Jung, the primary secretary for Adolf Hitler during this time period. And Downfall shines for its ability to bring something new to the story of Hitler and his last days that audiences will most likely not have seen before, as we see firsthand the deteriorating state of Hitler's mind and everything he held so dear crumbling around him. Downfall is definitely a movie that I would encourage any fan of historical war films to add to their watch list as soon as possible. At number 8, it is Kesari, which tells the incredible epic story of the last stand of 21 brave Sikhs fighting against 10,000 Afghan tribesmen in 1897. Kesari brings to life everything audiences would want in an epic historical film, such as realistic production design, interesting characters, and some huge epic battle scenes as well. There's not a lot to critique about Kesari overall, except that some of the action sequences are way over the top and aren't very believable. But overall, if you want an epic historical film about one of the most daring and successful last stands in modern history, then Kesari is my recommendation for you. At number 7, it is Lawrence of Arabia, a film familiar to all fans of the historical genre and a classic film that definitely deserves the high praise that it continues to receive even to this day. And this film stars Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif, with both giving one of the best performances of their career, and the film has been rated as one of the top 5 movies of all time by both the American Film Institute and British Film Institute as well. And Lawrence of Arabia is an epic war film which is based on the life of T.E. Lawrence and his 1926 book 7 Pillars of Wisdom, which explore his experiences in the Ottoman Empire during World War I. This is a film with a unique and engaging storyline, and if you ever find yourself with 227 minutes to spare, then watching Lawrence of Arabia may be a great way to fill that time. At number 6, it is Hacksaw Ridge, a war film directed by Mel Gibson that tells the true story of Desmond T. Doss, a conscientious medic who becomes the first non-combatant to receive the Medal of Honor after saving 75 men during the Battle of Okinawa without carrying a weapon. The film balances Doss's unwavering faith and brutal basic training where he faces hostility for refusing to touch a rifle. And Andrew Garfield delivers the best performance of his career in Hacksaw Ridge, as he is just amazing here, really bringing to life just how brave Desmond really was during a period of intense, brutal and bloody conflict. So if you haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge yet, I highly recommend you watch it as soon as possible, as you will be left awe-inspired and amazed at some of the feats displayed in this film. At number 5, it is Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World, an epic naval war drama set during the Napoleonic Wars. And the basic premise of the film is that in May 1805, British Captain Jack Aubrey of the HMS Surprise and his crew are tasked with the difficult mission of drowning or seizing the French privateer warship Acheron. But this is a nearly impossible task, as the Acheron is a much better equipped, manned and faster ship than the HMS Surprise. Master and Commander is perhaps the best naval warfare movie I have ever seen, and the realism of this film is unparalleled, as you feel like you're actually witnessing what life on the sea must have been like. So if you haven't seen Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World yet, then I highly recommend you add it to your watch list as soon as possible, and it is available to stream on Disney Plus in some parts of the world right now. At number 4, it is Apocalypse Now, a Vietnam War film directed by Francis Ford Coppola, the amazingly talented director behind the Godfather films. And in this movie, we follow Captain Willard on a mission to assassinate the rogue and insane Colonel Kurtz deep in the Cambodian jungle. Apocalypse Now is a surreal, hallucinatory journey featuring iconic scenes like the helicopter attack set to Ride of the Valkyries led by Robert Duvall's surf-obsessed Kilgore, which is one of the most perfectly shot scenes I have ever seen. And with stunning cinematography, a legendary soundtrack and powerful performances by both Marlon Brando and Martin Sheen, this movie has everything needed to be one of the best war epic films you will ever witness. At number 3, it is Schindler's List, perhaps Steven Spielberg's greatest work to date, and a film that seems to have had a long-lasting effect not just on historical movie fans, but mainstream audiences as well. Schindler's List was really able to portray on the big screen the horrors of the Holocaust and the World War II in a manner the world probably hadn't ever seen before. And the general storyline of Oskar Schindler's incredible bravery and tact to save the lives of over 1,000 Polish Jews during this time was a plot that is truly spectacular and amazing to witness. Simply put, Schindler's List is a film that is deserving of the accolade of being considered a masterpiece, and if you haven't watched it yet, then I highly recommend you watch this movie as soon as possible. At number 2, it is Saving Private Ryan, a film that I'm sure all historical movie fans will have heard of before. And the basic premise of this movie is about the rescue mission by a squadron of soldiers being tasked with finding and evacuating the last surviving brother of the Ryan family during the invasion of Normandy. The acting in Saving Private Ryan is top tier, with Tom Hanks leading an all-star cast, all of whom excel at bringing their characters to life. Steven Spielberg delivers a masterpiece with Saving Private Ryan, as the cinematography, battle scenes and costume design are all of the highest caliber, with the film actually winning the award for Best Cinematography and Best Director as well. Saving Private Ryan is worthy of all the praise it gets and more, and you owe it to yourself to find out why this film is so well received and loved by audiences even to this day. And the top spot on this list goes to 1917, a war film directed and produced by Sam Mendes, and it is partially inspired by stories told to Sam by his grandfather Alfred Hubert Mendes about various events he experienced during World War I. And this film depicts two British soldiers, Will Schofield and Tom Blake, and their crucial mission to deliver an important message to Colonel Mackenzie of the 2nd Battalion to call off a doomed offensive attack that will take place the following morning. But to be able to successfully complete their mission, Will and Tom must cross no man's land, abandoned German trenches and German occupied territory. 1917 has amazing cinematography and tells this story in a truly awe-inspiring way, resulting in 1917 winning the Academy Awards for Best Cinematography and Best Visual Effects as well. So if you haven't seen 1917 yet, I highly recommend you watch it as soon as possible, because in my opinion it's definitely the best war movie I have ever seen. So let me know in the comments down below if there are any other great war films that I may have missed out on, and which of these films you enjoy the most. And as always, if you want to stay up to date with everything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel History Spark, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.